video games. That thing we do when we're not building Lego. Yes. However, in this episode, we learn that you can combine video games and Lego. What? That's right. It's Video Games episode number 2 on the Bionicle Inspiration series, the show that helps inspire you to build cool stuff in the future by showing you some mocks from the community. So as I said, we're going to be doing the second episode on video game inspired mocks. These are from some of your favorite video games, showing some of your favorite video game characters or creatures or whatever. We're going to be covering those in the episode today. Now, of course, if you want to submit some of your own mocks to the show, you of course can, but more on how to do that at the end of the episode. Anyway, let's begin with a mock by Logi Bear that is called Super Mario. It's me, Mario! Nice. What a fun, fantastic mock. Very dynamic, has a lot of life to it, and looks just like the source material. Fantastic. I absolutely love this mock. One thing that I think is so cool with it is how well it utilizes system. Now, actually, this mock doesn't have a huge amount of Bionicle parts to it, but it does have some. We'll get to those a little later, but it's so cool how he's used so much system on here. He's actually used some of the Big Fig minifigure arms here to use as well Mario's arms. And it works very, very well, adding in some Technic figure motorcycle helmet things there for the hands. Just looks brilliant. The shaping looks very organic, very human-like, and it just works really, really well. And also, too, the way that he's able to get some very effective color blocking through the system parts here just works very, very nicely. So some fantastic stuff going on there using system. Let's get into Mario's face now. So if you look close enough, you can see that a Bionicle mask has actually been used to form the sort of base of the head here. And then you can see that the nose is a Zamisphere, and there's some droid bodies and ball joints and things like that that sort of make up the rest of the head here. Very, very cool. Very, very awesome to see how every little detail here is sort of packed in and nicely done. And that's always something to consider. It's always really fun to try and really perfectly match something just by getting a bunch of smaller parts and even a few bigger parts and just seeing what different connections you can make and playing around with things, seeing what you can do. I mean, heck, he's managed to use some minifigure hair as Mario's cheeks, Zamisphere as the nose, as I was saying before, and then even more ball joints there as the ears. So he's just sort of playing with all these different round textures here to create the overall face design. And it looks perfect. It looks so accurate. It looks brilliant. Very, very effective. And I'm sure it was literally just done through trial and error, playing around with these different parts, seeing what you can do. So that's awesome. That's really, really cool. What a great way to perfectly match one of the coolest plumbers in video game history. Now, he actually says that the head is actually connected to the body. He says that there's a chain of battle droid arms and torsos in the back that connects the head to the body. So that's cool. Another great way to kind of look at something is, maybe the connection doesn't need to be in the obvious spot. Because, obviously you could argue that, well, wouldn't the connection be where the neck is? But no. So yeah, there's always a different way to approach stuff. Maybe you can actually put the connection on the back of the head instead of on the neck. Or that could apply to any other part of the body. Who knows? You can always find a different way to connect stuff. So fantastic work, Logi Bear. Always cool to see a Super Mario inspired mock. Let's move on to the next mock, which is by Marco, and this mock is called Doomguy. So if you've played Doom, this is Doomguy from Doom. So here's a reference image of Doomguy, and as we can see, he actually has no armor on the side of his arms. And of course, we can see that translated to the mock here. And again, I think that's really cool. Just get up a couple images, something like this, and then just build what you see. Try and find some way to make that into analog that into actual Bionicle parts. So really cool to just sort of compare the two and sort of see, oh, hey, look how he's managed to make that into Bionicle form and da-da-da-da-da. Very, very cool. And a surprisingly simple way of conveying that flesh there, just simply using some of these 2x2 round plates here and stacking them to create a sort of natural looking arm design there. And then even cooler how simple it is that continues down. It's literally just a CCBS bone piece with armor on it and then attaching a boat stud in there simply through friction. It works really well, and it's a great way to continue on the flesh there and look a bit more like the source material. So some very clever stuff going on there. Speaking of very clever stuff, really, really cool to see this head design here. So it uses a Star Wars Super Battle Droid head to create a lot of the shaping on the side around here, and pretty much the shaping on everything in general here. It's very, very cool. So it's awesome to just, pick up. We've actually seen that so far quite often in the MOCs that we've seen so far. We've used some ordinary Battle Droid heads. We've used some Super Battle Droid heads now. So or bodies rather, not heads. But very, very cool to see how useful those pieces are. They have a lot of connection points on them, and they're really good for shaping stuff. So yeah, break it out, see what you can do. And this Super Battle Droid piece here is really unique because it has a very, very nice sort of texture throughout it, and works surprisingly well for a sort of head design like this, and even cooler as well because, again, it has multiple connection points, it's gunmetal as well, so it ties in with the rest of the MOC. There's a lot working for it, so very, very cool to see. Staying on the head, I absolutely love how he's used this visor piece from the old Fantoka sets. Ironically, this just works really well for any kind of super soldier or marine or anything, really. I always, every time I've seen that visor on a MOC, it always works really, really well. So very nice to see that piece being used. It's a very, very helpful, very nice piece here, definitely. Very cool gun design on this MOC too. Not necessarily using any sort of pre-based gun pieces, it's just simply kind of playing around with some connection parts, adding in some sort of barrel and stock and all sorts of things like that, and bam, you've got a very effective, very nice looking gun design. So it works very, very well and looks great on the MOC. Speaking of which, we have some very solid, beautiful shaping throughout this MOC as well. Everything's nice and compact, there's not really any gaps, everything just works well, but in a very nice and simple way. There's nothing overly complex about it, just works. And sometimes that's the path you need to go. Who says you need to be overly complex with it? Sometimes the simplest solutions are often the best way to go. So there you go. Works very well and a fantastic representation of Doomguy in Bionicle form. Let's move on to the next MOC, the one we've all been waiting for. It's our good friend Gyarados, and this is by the one, the only, Retinance, otherwise known as Mike Neves. Now, the title I'm sure you've read is actually Commissions. 3 of 3 Gyarados. So, if you contact Mr. Mike Neves, he can actually do a commission for you. If you're not too sure what that means, a commission is essentially, hey, Mike, I'd like you to build this, and then he'll give you some estimates on price, he'll send you a few prototypes, pictures, and things like that, and then, boom, sooner or later you'll have a finished Lego model of whatever it is you wanted to build. And Mike is honestly one of the most talented, amazing Bionicle builders I've ever seen, and if I didn't build it myself, man, I would probably get Mike to build it for me, but where's the fun in that? I'd rather build something myself. That said, if you want a quality, amazing model, this is definitely the route to go. So there's always different options. If you're struggling with something, but you really want it built, or you'd love to see your favorite character recreated in Lego and you're not too sure you can do it, maybe contact someone else. Send them some money and who knows? You can have a model for yourself. Very, very cool. Anyway, so that's something to keep in mind with Mike Neves, but let's talk a little bit about what's going on with this MOC because it's awesome. Now, the MOC is essentially just a lot of repeating segments. If you look closely enough, you can kind of see how it's made. It seems, I'm not too sure here, but it seems to be using various Hero Factory bones that are sort of interconnected with various socket pieces and things like that. And then he's just found whatever connection points he can, added a little, additional areas to sort of attach the dishes and things like that with what appears to be various axles and even a couple lift arms and things like that. And then essentially just repeating that multiple times. And then as the body gets bigger, he's changed the sizes of the dishes or the Hero Factory armor on the back and stuff like that. And you get the final design. So it's really cool because essentially this MOC is just the head and the tail. To a degree, obviously there's more to it, but let me explain. Once you've built one segment and one section of this sort of segmented design, you've essentially built the rest of the MOC, right? You just have to find a way to sort of organically make it flow together. Even if you just repeated the exact same segment, it would still work. But naturally with Gyarados, his body does get sort of slightly bigger and smaller and all that. So, you have to sort of change and evolve things slightly to match the source material. But if you're just building a long snake or a worm or something like that, then you could easily just repeat the exact same segment. And then really, most of the work is done because once you've built one, you just have to sort of copy and paste it. So very cool how that works. So often with that sort of design, a lot of your attention will then be focused on the head or the tail because, like I said, the rest of the MOC is essentially the same thing. And so that's really cool because you can, focus a bit more attention on that. Focus on putting in a bit more detail, put more parts in that, and really concentrate on getting a very nice result, as I'm sure was the case with Mike, and he definitely succeeded because this head design is fantastic. Really, really cool to see a very nice part use here of using a minifigure flag piece as the tongue on Gyarados. Very, very, very clever, very effective, works very, very well. Also, a very, very nice piece use is using the Kina fin here for the fin on Gyarados' head, which looks a lot like that piece, so very, very cool, very nice to see. Again, sort of using a lot of sort of system, smaller parts here to sort of create the shaping and overall look of the head here. You use some minifigure hands here to create sort of the rough eye design here. Looks fantastic, really, really cool. Again, I'm sure it's just trial and error, playing around with lots of smaller pieces, seeing what you can do, and seeing what you can create. And it's a fantastic end result. So the tail here is also very cool, very aquatic looking, with the sort of fin design there. And something else that's really cool about that design is using these minifigure capes here to create that fin design. Now, we've mentioned using minifigure capes before for wings or anything, but heck, what a great idea to use them to create some sort of aquatic looking fin or tail design. Works very, very nicely. I believe he's also got it there sort of around the head design. Very, very cool. Looks fantastic. Looks great. What a great way to use minifigure capes, and what a great way to create such an effective, awesome design. So very, very nice work by Mike Neves here. Some awesome designs. Let's move on to the bonus MOC, which is by Spartander1, and it is his MOC Willzen. Now, this is his self-MOC, to my knowledge, and he is saying that this MOC was very much inspired by a Titan Exo Guardian from Destiny. And so that's something that I think is cool as well, is maybe you really love a video game character, or a creature in a video game, or any concept in a video game, and you go, man, I'd really like that. Well, maybe you don't have to directly build them in Bionicle form, but maybe you can at least take some inspiration from them. You can at least take some concepts from that. If you really liked the weapon that one guy had in a video game, maybe you can translate that into Bionicle form and give it to your self-MOC, or give it to the latest MOC you've built. Why not? Something cool to think about, something that can inspire you. Because there's a lot of really, really awesome, creative, clever concepts and character designs and creatures and all that in any kind of video game. So definitely take a look around, because there's a lot that can inspire you from that sort of thing. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Willzen. Some very simple but very effective designs on this MOC. Often on Instagram, he'll be posting all sorts of different pictures and poses, and posing and playing with him in all sorts of fun ways. So I often I often enjoy seeing people make a more sort of simplistic design that doesn't use a lot of custom pieces or focus on adding in all sorts of detail that could end up falling off or something. If you go with something a little more simplistic, it's a lot easier to pose. It's a lot easier to play with. And if that's something you're going for, then definitely take a look at using a more simplistic design with just CCBS bones and things like that. It's definitely a fun thing to do, and definitely a great way to create a very posable, playable MOC. And remember as well, because like I was saying, this is Spartander1's self-MOC. If you play a lot of one video game and, certain aspects of that inspire your self-MOC, well, it kind of works, because a self-MOC is in some way a representation of you. And if you almost sort of define yourself a little bit off of some of the video games that you play, well, then maybe that's something to approach one of your self-MOCs with. If not, what other kind of defining characteristics of yourself can you put into your self-MOC? Who knows? Who knows? Only you can answer that. Anyway, fantastic MOCs from 4 fantastic MOCists. Be sure to check the links in the description for their stuff. Check out some of the other things that they do, and give them some love, because they are some talented people. Also, like I said, if you want to submit some of your own MOCs to the show, you, of course, can do so. Simply check the links in the description. Like I was saying before, there you will see my social media. There are various places like Instagram, Flickr, and Facebook that have personal messaging systems. Chuck me a message, send me a link. Links are always more preferred, but send me whatever you can. Send me a link to the MOC that you want to be on the show. I'll add it to the list, and eventually it'll be on. I had someone message me the other day. They said, I saw you didn't put my MOC on the show that I submitted. Does that mean it's not very good? Does that mean it's not good enough? Of course not. Any MOC is good. I don't have any kind of quality control. Send anything. I don't mind what it is, as long as it's Lego. Send anything my way, and it'll eventually come on the show. Bear in mind, I have a long backlog of episodes, so you may not see it for a bit, but you will in fact see it. I've got like 40 plus MOCs to work through, so it might take a bit, but it will be there. Don't worry. Anyway, that's it for this episode on video game inspired MOCs. Be sure to play some video games, have some fun, and see if those characters or character designs or concepts can inspire you in the future. That's all for today, guys. Stay tuned for Video Games 3. What? Spoilers? Bye for now.